everyone, and welcome again to another episode of the Two World Podcast. I will be starting things off today, and I am, of course, Barney, and I am joined with my ever-present co-host, and he is...
Jacob.
We have another guest with us today, and it's someone that I have had the chance to get to know here and there on my visits to Wooster Mennonite, and am always thrilled and kind of always feel like I'm learning something new about our guest today. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Ken Nanes, and I'm glad to be here, Barney.
Yeah, great. It's really a joy to have you here. I was really excited when I found out that you would make time for us today. One of the reasons why Ken will be here today is we want to talk about the meal that Wooster Mennonite provides for just anyone and everyone that takes place on Christmas Eve, I think right before the Christmas Eve service. It's something that I don't remember so well when I was growing up, but it just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of happened as far as it feels for me. You know, I was visiting home once and my parents said, well, we're going to go to church. And why are we going so early? Because there's a meal. Oh, really? When did this start? And I was really glad that I had gone, and I've been able to attend to two of these since I've been living here in Japan. And so from my point of view, I'm really interested to hear how this got started. And I think it's a great idea for sure. And I'd like to hear just a little bit more. So Ken, why don't you just let us know how did this get started?
Okay, well, I'm not 100% sure of the actual origination point, but what I do know from the history is that a lady named Lori, who formerly worked in our church office, seemed to be the leader of this effort. What I do remember well, Barney and Jacob, is the first time that Angie and I volunteered and walked in on it. The first thing I was struck by was, I'm not going in the kitchen because I think I could be killed in there. Those people were, at that moment, this is a big operation. This is huge. So I'm glad I signed up to be a server out here where I can kind of watch what goes on there. And from there, our involvement evolved and the feelings that go along with it.
Yeah, our guest that we had last week, what?
Bill Seymour.
So he is leading the Monday meals at, working with Monday meals at Wooster Mennonite, and he said that he personally enjoys cooking, and so he really feels comfortable doing that. Are you working more are you more willing to take some time in the kitchen now? Are you happy to do that, or what role do you play these days?
Cooking appears to me to be a fun hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Better off that someone else would be doing it so that we would ensure a quality meal. How's that?
Loud and clear.
I'll go out and, I'll have the list of what to get. And I think I'm better suited for that, Barney.
One of the things that I really appreciate about you, Ken, is how you enjoy meeting people and hearing their stories. And I'm wondering, as you think about this event, do you feel that it provides opportunities for you and other volunteers to meet people that they wouldn't normally meet and to build relationship with them? And if so, are there any stories that come to mind for you right now about it?
Jacob, I would say it's one of the prime opportunities of the evening. Last year, we had to serve from a truck outside in our parking lot. Beautiful snowy night, but with snow comes difficulties, and the difficulties might be people and the way they need to be transported. And the one particular story I remember is there were two people that got off the Worcester Transit bus and made their way up to get their boxed dinner. And one of our people who was guiding people into the parking lot, Jim Hartman, came to me and said, I wonder how they're going to get back. And I thought, yeah, very good question, Jim. So he suggested that maybe one of us should perhaps offer some transportation. And since I was kind of a floater, I did that. And the blessing therein was once we got the gentleman and the lady into the car, this man had a real story to tell, and really expressed a need to be heard, which would not have happened had Jim's, observant nature not taken over at that moment. And that was a blessed moment last year.
You had mentioned there what it was like last year due to the limitations of COVID, and I was wondering if you would be willing to say a little bit about what it'll be like this year.
I met with a few people who are seasoned veterans, and we kind of decided that maybe it's time to have people come in again. We were not totally comfortable with seating 200, 250 people and the risks therein to each other and to them and so on. So what we are going to do is have them come in and check in at our little desk out front and be greeted. We'll have a prayer request table that requests can be shared, which was done last year as people drove up. So that element is still there. Then they'll move into our fellowship hall area and pick up their dinner. And hopefully there's an opportunity for a bit of conversation in those spaces.
Yeah, I was surprised to see kind of the group email last year about prayer requests from the meal, and I thought that's really a fantastic idea, but I couldn't quite wrap my mind around how that worked, because I knew it was in a drive-through setting, and it's fantastic that you're having this this table where people can write, anonymously or add their name if they wish to about any requests for prayer. But how did it work last year, where they were able to submit some requests?
We had a couple of people, I believe, had clipboards and as folks came to them to be directed further to how to logistically pick up their meal, the offer was made if there's anything you would like prayer for, and the list was fairly substantial.
Ken, I wanted to ask you what some of your hopes are for this event and for those who will be attending it.
We'd love them to immediately feel welcome, and knowing our people, I'm sure they will have that feeling. Number two, I hope there's some communication beyond the prayer request table, as I mentioned, and I picture, some of us walking with them as they make their way to the line, or if there's a line outside the door, that somebody might be out there to have a little bit of conversation as well. And I guess thirdly and optimistically, we'd love to have you come back on a Sunday and see what Wooster Mennonite is all about. And you would be so welcome to do so.
Being in the church office, we get a lot of phone calls about this event, and I'm always really impressed with the gratitude and the appreciation that callers have. The meal seems to really connect with a need that they perceive for themselves or for the community, and it just seems that they are filled with thankfulness. And we often hear words of encouragement like, "Great job," or "God bless you. Thank you so much for doing this." And it is really inspiring to me. And it was also inspiring when you stood up that one Sunday and informed the church that this initiative was going ahead and that you would be leading it, how people responded. It just seemed like there was an excitement in the room. People wanted to engage. I know for my wife Katie and our family and my son Micah in particular, this event is one of their favorite parts about Christmas. Micah actually specifically said that to me. Dad, this is one of my favorite parts of Christmas. And so I wanted to ask you, Ken, why you think this captures the imagination of our congregation so much. Why do you feel it brings so much joy and excitement and really draws people in?
Yeah, and Micah came to me Sunday, as I sat at the table trying to sign people up, saying, I just want you to know this is my favorite thing about Christmas. And I appreciated that from him. I think it resonates with our people because we have some very giving people in so many different ways. And I think it's easy for them in that regard. Personally, and I think I've said this publicly in our church before, I think it has become, because it's got some years behind it now, this is a thing that Wooster Mennonite Church does. And that maybe inspired me more than anything else to say, let's continue.
Yeah, even though I've just been there 2 times, it was also something. The first time I just really loved it, and then the second time I also was excited to be able to be a part of it, even just a small part. Maybe my end was more, being available to meet these a lot of people I'd never met before, and 2 or 3 people who actually I remembered seeing their faces, and they remembered me and came up to me from the community and chatted with me.
Mhm.
So it's a way that we ourselves, we can feel a little bit blessing coming back in these unexpected ways too. And it's just such a wonderful testament. And I'm just so glad that we can do this, no matter what the kind of immediate tangible result is. I think it also kind of speaks to how, as Worcester Mennonite, as a church, we're looking at the ways outside of the building, meeting people in a way, where they're coming from. And it's just such a great thing that we can do. And I don't know, I remember the turnout being so big those 2 times that I went, last year being so different. Was the turnout pretty consistent as in the past?
I judge it, Barney, to be a little bit lower, but there were 166 reservations via the link that was provided, plus the phone call reservations, plus a few walk-ups. So a lot of people came. And if I could, Barney, and kind of piggyback on some things you were saying, you said to hear their story, and their story is very diverse. There might be a tendency to think these are people, that are hungry, that are coming. Sure, that element's there, but this is a very, very diverse crowd of folks that are coming for a multitude of different reasons, and therein lies yet another blessing in it.
One of the things that we talk a lot about on our podcast is the value of hospitality and how it can be transformative. And it's so meaningful to me that the night that we offer the Christmas Eve dinner is the very night that we celebrate the birth of Jesus. And it's almost as if the action of extending this hospitality prepares us in a way that we couldn't otherwise be prepared for the later part of the evening when we come together to remember our Lord. And it's interesting to me how our gratitude towards God is extended through the action of hospitality, and it really goes to the heart of worship. And I'm just kind of wondering, before we close, if either of you have anything else that you'd like to share.
I would like to say I certainly, and I think Jacob would affirm, and Barney, you've been there for it twice. I certainly long for the time when it can be seated people, a little bit of a program right after the dinner, which we've done in the past in the sanctuary, where we have had some people stay, leading into the service that evening, where we have had some people stay. So, there's the big hope at this time as we try to emerge from the pandemic. And I want to thank you guys for having me here. This is fun.
Yeah, and of course, we're certainly praying along for how things will go. And I don't know, maybe we can call this part one, and maybe after the holiday we can check back in with Ken and have him on again and hear more about how things went and just more about Ken and his story in general. That would be a lot of fun, I think.
Oh, thank you.
We want to thank our listeners who have been with us for this conversation. We appreciate you. We also hope that today's podcast has been inspiring for your own sense of hospitality in this season. And for any who are local, if you'd like to come and participate in the event, whether as volunteers or recipients of the meals, we hope that you will do so. Once again, Ken and Barney, thank you for being part of today's podcast. It was a joy to be with you. And until next time, goodbye.